Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerer's Guild. Today we will finally begin the Sorcerer Tal's Tales, which I've been promising for a while. These will be stories from my own life, beginning with my childhood. And the first of those stories today will be the story of the time that I climbed under my bed with a baseball bat looking for monsters. Now, we'll also have a little bit on hunting monsters in general, but since this is the first video of this series, I figure we should start at the beginning. Okay, so my name is actually Art, which is my father's way of giving me a name that would fit into both his father's culture and his mother's culture. His mother being an Ojibwe Indian, whose father was actually the shaman and medicine man, or more importantly, Manitou, for the Swan River Valley Ojibwe, which are now the Black River Chippewa Reservation. Anyways, that's my father, and his grandfather told him throughout his life that his firstborn son would be the next Manitou. That, of course, would be me. Okay, so I was born in Clearfield, Utah at exactly noon on April 11th, 1979. For those of you interested in doing the birth chart on that, it was actually technically Hill Air Force Base at exactly noon. Anyways, I don't know if anyone's actually going to want to do my birth chart. I don't know if I'm quite that interesting, but there's the information if you're curious. Anyways, so my father was of mixed descent, obviously, and he gave me a name that would fit into both cultures, because my name is not Art, as in short for Arthur. Rather, I am named after art itself, like paintings, the aesthetic properties and flow of aesthetics and self-expression that is art. So that is where my name comes from. Anyways, my mother was of Mormon stock from one of the small towns out here that moved into the city next to Hill Air Force Base, Clearfield, just a little bit before, well, probably a few years before they met, but at any rate, they met there. My mother, like I said, is Mormon stock. There's some rumor that we are descended from Parley Pratt, which is one of the 12 original apostles of the Mormon Church, but I can't prove that, and that doesn't matter much to me one way or the other. At any rate, as I said, my father was told that his firstborn son would be the Manitou, would be the next Manitou, and then when I was born with 2 placentas and a witch's mark on my left or on my right breast here, which I've showed in a few videos. I'll show you again here. It's actually a spot that bled till I was about 8 years old, and then it was very bright after that, and it had a lot of pinks and yellows, and it was there for a long time. I was well into my adult years before it finally, well, it's almost here in my 40s now, it's almost invisible. At any rate, okay, so what else do we want to say about my early childhood? I began most things at an exceptionally young age. I began speaking at the age of 9 months old, and my first word was hi, which I feel like was a very appropriate word. Okay, other than that, I began walking at about 1.5 years, and I had a fascination with the idea of monsters, yeah? And so I would look for monsters. People kept saying there was monsters, you know. People like to scare little kids, and you'd hear things on the TV about, oh, the monster under your bed, the monster in your closet, and I was always watching for these monsters because I wanted to fight one. I wanted to have some monster stew, specifically, so I would watch for these monsters. And the one under the bed made the most sense to me because there was area under there that I couldn't see in the dark. And so when I was about 4 years old, now granted, it's not the best choice for climbing under the bed, really. I don't know what I was thinking. There's no way to swing a bat under a bed, but I knew it was a weapon, I guess. And I crawled underneath the bed, looking all over for this monster. If I'd been a little bit older, maybe I would have thought to bring a flashlight. But I crawled under the bed, and I looked in the top and the back corner, and I crawled back to the side, dragging this baseball along with me. And I never did find a monster. Crawled all underneath that bed. Looked everywhere I could. No monster. And this actually was quite sad to me at the time. I was quite disappointed by the idea there was no monster under the bed. I wanted my monster stew. And so, that isn't where this ends. That's just where it started. One doesn't give up so easily on something like hunting monsters. Especially when you're a child's mind, and the child's mind is seeing the potential for monsters everywhere. But I never really had a fear. Like I said, I wanted to catch one of these monsters. And I began watching for them everywhere. And of course, they never quite seemed there. They were always just a little bit out of my grasp. Somewhere just outside of that shadow. No matter how many times I went for them, no matter how many times I looked, they always seemed to escape. But then I noticed there was things called nightmares. The monsters, types of monsters I was looking for, weren't quite here. They were in between here and dreams. Yes, there was an imagination, but just an imagining a monster and chasing it down, well, it was fun. I mean, of course I did that a lot, but it wasn't quite the same as what I was looking for. And so I began hunting in my dreams. And the very first one of these experiences, this is actually how I became lucid. I became lucid at a very young age, and it was, well, I was partially aware that I was dreaming already because, like I said, I was began hunting monsters in my dreams, and eventually I found one. And it was a werewolf. And, well, apparently in my dream I wasn't quite prepared for this. And I didn't have that much control over my dreams yet. I just could go into my dreams looking for monsters. And so I found this werewolf, and it suddenly in my dream there's this nightmarish werewolf chasing me, growling, snarling, and, well, I got scared and I started running. And I'm running away from this werewolf, and he chases me into this fun house, and there's mirrors everywhere. And I'm running through all these mirrors of halls of mirrors, and I can see the werewolf over here and over there, and he's flashing through all the mirrors, and I don't know where he is, and I don't know where I'm going, and I'm running around in all these mirrors trying to get away from this werewolf. And then finally I come into this spot in the mirrors where there's nowhere to go. I run up against the wall, and I'm standing there all scared, just a little boy, and I see the werewolf, and he's coming. He's getting at me, and he's running at me, and just before he gets to me, I remember, this is a dream. If this is a dream, I can do anything I want. And so I turned into a silver bullet. Yeah. Again, I've learned better strategies since then, but I turned into a silver bullet, and I started going towards the werewolf, and he turns around and he starts running away. And then in this dream, I'm chasing the werewolf through these mirrors, and because it's my dream and I can control it, I only see what's ahead of us. I don't see what's in the mirrors. I make it so only the werewolf is confused, and I'm chasing him through the funhouse, and then I make the thing open up, and I make the sun come out, and the full moon go away, and he turns into a man, and that's when I woke up. But that still isn't where this ends. Yeah, 'cause I didn't really catch that werewolf. And now I begin having dreams of monsters, and it's more of a thing. And as I get a little bit older, well, as we get older, we develop fear. And I start being a little bit afraid of these things that might be there. And then I have this dream again of a monster. And he's this big creature with scales and spikes and armor and teeth, and he's green, almost like some kind of alligator turtle man. He was just this crazy reptilian thing with all these teeth, and he would chase me. And I'd gotten a little bit older, I had less confidence, I'd learned that I could be hurt, because, you know, like I said, as we grow older, we learn fear. About the age of 5 or 6, I think, we start learning fear. And so now I'm afraid of this thing, and I'm running away, and it gets me, it puts me in a corner, and I'm trying to fight it, and even though I'm in a dream, I'm too scared. And I keep either waking up or running away, and I can't fight this thing. But the next day, after that one where I kept losing and I kept running away, I decided I needed a weapon. And, well, in a way it was a baseball bat because we used to play wiffle ball, and I had a wiffle ball bat. Well, wiffle stick, because it was a 36-inch broomstick handle, I believe. Either way, it was 36 inches long. That's where the obsession with that length started for me. Your own dream staffs, I have videos on that. If you choose to make a dream staff, it does not have to be 36 inches long. Ideally, it should go from your hip to the floor, so you can hold it like this. It's just about the right length for most things that we do with this. But at any rate, that's where the first one that's the first time I used one. Obviously 36 inches was taller than from my hip to my feet at the time, since I was much younger. But that's where we started, and I took this stick and I brought it into my dream with me by going to sleep with it like this. And I imagined that I was bringing the stick into the dream with me as I fell asleep, much like some children would hold a teddy bear to fight off a nightmare. But I'm not trying to scare off the nightmare. I'm trying to defeat it. And so, I grabbed my stick, and that night when I went to bed, I held the stick with me like this, and I went into the dream, and as soon as I fell asleep, I saw that monster, and he's on the side of this swamp. There's a big cypress tree and and green moss, and he's there in the water, and I come running up, and he sees me, and when he sees me, he opens up his big alligator teeth, and he comes running right at me, and I take my stick, and I run in, and as he bites, he goes to bite, and I go whap like that, and I smack him right in the jaw, right between his teeth, and rather than biting my stick, it smacks him right here in the back, and he just busts all of his teeth back there, and I flipped it around, and I hit him with this side, and then I just started hitting this creature in my dream with this stick until I won. And I don't remember having actually monster stew in the dream, in that particular dream. But it's another thing we'll discuss while we're talking in these videos, and since I've talked about eating monster stew and things like that. Well, first of all, let's get back to this. I have seen this type of scenario play out many times in the lives of of children who are intended for astral combat roles of one way or another. They will actually have beings come to them and challenge them with the intent of making them get over that fear, making them learn to fight in the dream. And I don't know who exactly that green turtle thing was. Turtle alligator thing, what swamp monster? I don't know exactly where it came from or if it was something that I sent from my own psyche. But I've seen this more than once with my little brother. He has skills as well, and with him, it was this shadow zombie thing that came to him, and he kept having these dreams of it chasing him, and it was around that same age. And so, now I'm 10 years older than my little brother, by the way, so I was 15 when he was going through this, and he was 5. And rather than like telling him I'm going to chase it off or scare it off or I'm going to get mom and dad to do something, I went out into the yard and I found a stick, a good stick, one that had a nice big knot on the end, and I told my little brother, you're going to fight this thing because you have to learn not to be afraid of it. And I taught him to take the stick into his dream, and he didn't quite vanquish it the first time with the stick, but he eventually got there and defeated his monster in the same way. And I've seen this scenario a few other times with friends, children, and things like that have these talents where they have these monsters coming to them, and in one way or another, they have to learn to defeat them. And that was the monster that I was seeking as well. And though he wasn't under my bed, I eventually did find him. So, there's one other thing I was going to talk about while we are on tonight, because I was talking about eating monsters, that sort of thing. Eating astrally. And by this, I mean consuming spirits, ghosts, that sort of thing. Now understand, first of all, because I didn't know this, or I didn't understand this myself originally, there is no escape. There is no end to awareness. So even if you grasp a ghost or a spirit and consume it, break it down to base energy, you still haven't killed it forever. It will exist eventually. You've probably removed the ghost, yeah? If this is a technique I often use in hauntings, and it works. It works very well. Any awareness that was attached to that, it'll come back eventually, but nothing to worry about, probably even within this lifetime. Okay, so how does one eat a ghost, spirit, or etc.? Okay, well, the first part obviously is getting a hold of it. One needs to be able to identify and find a ghost. If you have trouble actually seeing and grasping onto a ghost, this is mostly done through visualization. You do this with literally allowing your energy out and grasping and holding on to them. You have a soul too. Yeah? Just because the ghost is only a soul doesn't mean you don't have one. So, you can use your energy, that vital force energy. You are pumping it out constantly. You are actually in the advantage in any fight once you have identified the ghost enough to be able to see it and are no longer being afraid. So, you can use energy to reach out and grasp it, your chi, and pull it in. Now, with the visualization part, there's also another way you can do this. Rather than imagining it with your hand, just imagine yourself sucking in the ghost. Just like that. Almost like a blowgun, but in reverse. However you do it, however visualization you use, you then can pull the ghost into you, or imagine it happening in front of you if you're comfortable with the idea of actually consuming this energy. What you can do in either case is you imagine it being encased in front of you, or you suck it in, and then you hold it there. And you imagine the consciousness being pulled away from the energy itself. And then you need to imagine all that energy being broken apart. I use a vortex. I imagine it spinning fast within a vortex and all the energies and patterns within it being taken apart. And you need to visualize this very thoroughly. You need to make sure that you fully digest anything conscious that you are eating. Yeah? This is a very delicate operation. You want to make sure you fully digest everything and divest that consciousness from it. And imagine yourself breaking down that consciousness itself as much as you can. Imagine all of it breaking apart, like little patterns busting. And as you're breaking these patterns apart, you can actually feel yourself in that centrifuge feeling for the good things, for knowledge, information, the things that you can use within this energy. And you pull that into your vortex, and you push the wreck back into the center and tear it apart more, and you just keep doing this until there's just base energy left, and you consume that, leaving just that other part that you've torn apart with the consciousness that you're also breaking apart. And you should be doing that same vortex to this part as well, and tearing it down and pulling out as much usefulness as you can. But when you've got down to something that is no longer struggling, something that is no longer moving and fighting in any way, you push that away. That is what you exhale. You can be conscious about where you put it, opening a portal, sending it to somewhere else, which can have an effect. There are some things that I could say there about where to put it, but I've already told you how to consume a being. Okay, fine. One of the most effective ways to making sure that it isn't going to be bothering you for a long time is sealing it within a dimension of some sort, like a pocket dimension. You can literally imagine opening a hole up into the nothing. If you shove them to the S1, if you're going to the nothing that way, that's not going to work. Well, it would. You're getting rid of the consciousness, but now they can go wherever they want. So that's actually a pretty friendly way to do it. if you have no more than one lifetime long conflict with this being, that's what I would suggest, really. There's no reason to seal people away and do all kinds of brutal things, because eventually, no matter where you put them, no matter what you do with them, eventually they will come back. And if they've been stuck out into nothing for 100 lifetimes, and you're the one that put them there, when they come back, you might not remember who they are, but they might be quite upset with you. Yeah? So, if you can, if it's logical, just push that into the S1, allow that bit to escape, to go on to whatever it's going to do now that it has been thoroughly pummeled. And it's probably going to take it a while to even if you do that, it's going to take it a lifetime or two to come up with some awareness. Hopefully you want to strip away the memory of who did that to them if you can during the breaking away process. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have to cover here? Like I said, there will be a few more episodes from my childhood. I'm not sure how much of all that I'll cover. We're going to go through quite a few stories that took place within this lifetime, and then we'll backtrack and tell some more interesting ones, perhaps from some of my past lives. But do quite a few more of these. Like I said, I found this a lot less intimidating once I got into it and actually started telling the story. But I guess it was just the idea of telling so much about myself that got in the way. So hopefully I will be putting these out more regularly. I admit that they were the idea was a bit intimidating, and it's had me stalled. That being said, the next episode to come out is going to be another episode on the AWA about grandmother, and that should be coming out fairly soon. We've definitely had a lot of conversations there about what it is exactly they want me to say, and I have been dealing with grandmother for a long time. It's just now I'm dealing with her in a little bit different role as the opener of the way to open the crossroads to the AWA. Okay, so anyways, I think that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.